We don't have investors. We've been running off cash flow for 10 years. We grew from $0 to doing over $10 million in 3 years online. I don't see people inside my industry as competitors. It goes back to between 2011 and 2014 before Tropeaka started. I was chronically sick. I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. It's my goal to build a $100 million a year company off the back of bullshit. A lot of companies just treat influencers as their cash cow, and influencers get bombarded by companies all day, every day. If you're already looking at it from that lens, then you're doing it wrong.
Caleb Marshall, the man behind Tropeaka, a wellness and supplements brand, 8 figures in annual turnover, tens of thousands of 5-star reviews, product launches with some of Australia's best influencers, and the list goes on. Why do you do what you do, Caleb?
Yeah, it's a great first question. I love it. It's the cornerstone of why Tropeaka exists. To answer that question takes about 3 hours, but I'll put it in 3 minutes. Goes back to between 2011 and 2014 before Tropeaka started. I was chronically sick. I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. Doctors didn't know when I'd be healthy again. Each day was extremely painful. I had inflammation throughout my whole body, chronic exhaustion, pain. I had flu-like symptoms pretty much every single day. And with that comes a whole lot of mental pain as well. I had depression and suicidal thoughts. And the worst thing as well was, like, doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. So I was a young guy. They'd given me no hope, right? That's a horrible place to be at the age of 21. For the next 3.5 years to 2014, I went on a journey to figure out how I could get healthy again. Found a thing called functional medicine, integrative medicine in 2014. And those doctors said something radical for the time, which isn't radical now, which is, hey, if you cut out the crap from your diet, you replace it with high quality nutrition, your life and your health can change around. Your body's always looking to heal itself. And it did. It was an absolute miracle. Within 3 weeks, my life had drastically changed by cutting out the crap and replacing it with whole foods and nutrition. And that didn't cure my body in those 3 weeks, but it took the symptomatic load and the inflammatory load off my body. And I started feeling a whole lot better so that my body could start to heal itself. Through functional medicine and these doctors, I was able to do the necessary tests to determine that it was gut issues. And these gut issues occurred because of me taking, up until when I got sick, for 5 years, I took antibiotics for my skin, for acne as a teenager. So between the ages of 16 and 21. Back then, the GPs handed them out like candy. And so I took plenty of them. And it obviously had a devastating effect on my life. On top of that, about 6 to 9 months after I got sick, I also moved into an apartment that had mold in it. And so I also developed really, really bad mold toxicity. So through that, your immune system's in a whole lot of haywire. You've got gut issues plus mold toxicity, and it's not a fun recipe for health. And so I know, going back to answer the question, I know how horrible poor health is. And so in 2014, my housemate, who was also going through his own health issues, we'd go down to the health food store when we started to change our life around. We realized that the only people going into a health food store in 2014 were old people and hippies, and no one was making health foods cool and relatable to the younger generation. And I was 23 at the time. And so we decided to start a health food company. Funnily enough, one of our first ideas was to start kombucha before kombucha was even cool and was a thing. But we didn't have the money to do that. But we also then decided, well, one thing we do have the money for is to bring out organic superfoods and protein. And that was stuff that we were taking at the time. And we saw the impact that high quality nutrition had on our lives. And so our why and our purpose was, we want to go and make this cool so that we can impact millions of people in their health. And that's still our purpose and our why for today. And we take it really seriously. There's a lot of, I suppose, cowboys in the industry, in the supplement industry around the world, that will produce products that don't do anything, and they're just, they're marketed very well. Our job has always been to produce the highest quality products that we can for the price point that we're trying to aim for. And because of that, we've had to sell some premium price products. And at the same time market it really well. So it's something that people can express as their values, which is like, hey, I'm healthy. I want to show this product off to all of my friends, whether it's in my kitchen or on social media. And so we have that really inbuilt into our mission statement, which is we've got a decently long mission statement, but like the crux of it is to positively impact millions of people in their health. And we've been able to do some cool stuff over the last 10 years to be able to do that.
Incredible. Very cool, Caleb. And so I know now that you've got a pretty broad assortment, but take me back to, so you mentioned you launched with kind of superfoods and proteins. How's the thesis around the products that you've brought to market kind of evolved since launch? And take me back to those early years.
Yeah, well, I'm a massive fan of whole foods, superfoods. So like it was to launch organic superfoods, and we did that like wheatgrass, barley grass, spirulina, maca. They were all our first products, goji berry powder, camu stuff like I was taking every day, a greens powder. But we also had that's a very small niche market even to today. And so we were like, oh, well, we also occasionally take a plant-based protein. So we're like, oh, maybe we'll launch that as well. And funnily enough, we really took off the back of those plant proteins. We were really the first in Australia, let alone, dare I say, the first in the world, or one of the first in the world, to make a really great tasting plant protein. And so that became really, really popular 10 years ago. I mean, there's a lot of them out there now, but that was something that wasn't a direct decision that we made that we're going to launch with that plant protein. It was very much like organic superfoods. But it turned out to be a very good one because we were very naive around concepts like TAM back then, total addressable market. And so being able to launch something that had a bigger kind of market appeal was pretty important for us to grow. And it was great that we were able to provide a high quality product to market back then. Since then, we've probably still been the victim of a lot because of our values. We've chosen not to launch a lot of products over the years that we could have made a lot of money off, but just didn't fit with the ethos and the values that we have. And so if we couldn't bring something to the market that was going to do better for people's health in the environment that they're in, or where they're purchasing, whether it's in a retail environment or online, then we didn't. But it has been kind of the guiding principles on how we focus on launching products.
That's amazing. And I definitely resonate with that. And I think, people might look at that and go, well, plant protein, how innovative is that? But I think when you take the lens back to 2014, with the options that were then, and I was, a shopper for plant protein back then. And I always used to think, people were having bulk nutrients and all these other flavors, choc honeycomb and all these things that tasted like dessert. And they were the most delicious things. And I used to think, damn, why can't I have that? So to be able to actually bring something that tastes amazing, to market was something that was really, really new at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a wildly different world back then. And I mean, even like if we talk about even 2019 was so different to where it is today. COVID hit and every man and every woman and their dog wanted to launch a supplement company after COVID hit. So the market has exponentially grown in terms of the number of players that have come and brought out products. But back in 2016, when we launched, and really 2014 when we came up with the idea, it took us 18 months to launch. It was a very different time.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like COVID was very much a transformational period, wasn't it? Particularly for health and wellness. What are your thoughts in terms of what were the key things that changed within individuals to now start looking at, other alternatives or to adopt, a more of a wellness lifestyle?
Oh, well, look, once something comes out that threatens the global masses with not having great health, COVID can obviously kick people into gear to start looking after their health. And I think there was enough information out there that was positive around there's many preventative ways that you can support your immune system in order to stay healthy and minimize the impact of what happens when you catch COVID, and that was I suppose some positive messaging because it put a lot more spotlight on the core pillars of health. So there's like obviously reactive health, which many people call sick care, which is you go to the doctor not for prevention but because you're sick, and so that's fantastic for when you're sick care. But there's also health care, right? And so you can be very proactive with your health. There's 5 ways to be very proactive with your health, and this isn't talked about when you go to a GP because they've only got 15 minutes with you. But if you look after your health through high quality nutrition, clean drinking water, exercise, stress reduction, and sleep, you're going to be in a very, very good position with your health. And whether it's COVID or anything, flus, sicknesses, you're going to be, relying on those core pillars will be something that will do you very good. And I think the world is slowly waking up to that, especially, funnily enough, the male market. Before COVID, the female market was predominantly the only people you could sell health foods to. And now we're starting to see males wake up, which is quite nice.
Yeah, I'm definitely one of those that have kind of woken up post-COVID and definitely kind of back to basics, right? Need my sunlight, need some fresh air, need to eat whole foods, stop putting crap in my body. So, definitely part of that market, I guess, that you've talked about that's kind of woken up a little bit. That must have had a pretty big impact on your business then, kind of coming out the other side of COVID. I guess not necessarily doubled your TAM, but if you're now selling to both men and women, it must have been a pretty exciting time for you.
Yeah, I mean, we thrived in 2020, 2021 with e-commerce. Like many e-com companies, then we all suffered a lot of competition that came in, even across the board. When you've got in the e-com space, you're up against people or companies bidding, like big box retailers, Target, Harvey Norman, Woolworths, Coles, all of these guys bidding on the same ad platforms as you. So that'll increase the CPMs across the board, regardless of whether or not they're selling the same product as you. And so that level of COVID actually ended up net sucking for our business because we dominated the online space before COVID. And then, it was fantastic for about 18 months. But then once everyone else woke up to realizing, we got to put considerable ad spend into our e-commerce, no matter who it was. And then they all heard about this thing called influencer marketing and were throwing crazy money at influencers without any understanding of what a return on investment is. Then suddenly e-com businesses didn't have the glory days that it was pre-COVID. So we had to adapt our strategy, and we've gone omni-channel since then, and had a lot of success, which is great. But people coming into the e-com land these days don't realize just how tough it is compared to before COVID. But like any business, you got to adapt, and we've been able to adapt really successfully, and our e-com continues to grow, which is fantastic.
Awesome. So I guess you touched on a little piece there, being retail and kind of the role that that's played in your strategy now. Talk to me, I guess, about the first steps that you took. How did these kind of launches come about? Sounds like it was quite intentional off the back of these rising CPMs and increased competition online, but would love to hear a little bit about how you guys approach retail these days.
Yeah. So, I mean, we started with indies. A lot of people like independents, so health food stores and independent chemists and grocers. A lot of people want to go big into major players, and unless you've got experience in that, or you've got investors, we don't have investors. We've been running off Cashflow for 10 years.
Wow.
Then you, thank you. It's it comes with its challenges. That's for sure. So it's always a lot better when you're playing with other people's money. But look, it's it causes you to make decisions that are a lot different, right? And so if you don't have investors and you make the wrong move into, say, major retail and it doesn't swing your way, that will not just cost you money, but your business can go out of, into administration or bankruptcy. So learning through the journey was really important to us. I was a tennis coach before I started Tropeaka. I was hitting tennis balls. So I don't have any formal training in anything, even e-commerce. So for me, it was very much, okay, let's start with independents and grow what we do with the independent side of things. We've got some great distributors that we work with, and we have deep, close relationships with them. And it was then after a couple of years that we decided to then go into the majors and actually know what a strategy in retail could look like because of the things that you learn in dealing with, say, more diversified, smaller risk with independents.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And I think that's pretty common in terms of that period of time of people steering towards retail, which is quite interesting. And I guess it would be interesting to hear your thoughts now of being sort of definitely online first and knowing that that's a completely different ballgame to retail, isn't it, in terms of how those channels operate, what's important, what success looks like, and how to actually grow those channels. And I guess pretend there's a brand that's smaller, started online and is sort of looking at retail as an opportunity. What words of, I guess, wisdom would you have for them, tackling that channel?
Gotcha. Well, definitely, it just goes back to probably what I did, which is start with low risk, understand retail. It's completely different. Everything from pricing, packaging, product as well. Like some products perform very well online compared to say retail, and getting some key learnings through lower risk. If you're going into, say, the US or something like that overseas, like maybe there's opportunities where you just target a certain segment of the market, or another option could potentially be, if you did want to go into a big retailer, it might be looking at, say, a Woolworths Metro or a Coles local kind of vibe, so that you can test it in 100 odd stores rather than 700, 800, 900 or 1,000.
Yeah, definitely. I think testing it in the market definitely makes sense, because I think the scale of distribution only scales your problems, doesn't it, in terms of what could go wrong and the downside. So definitely makes sense. And I think my learnings are very similar in terms of ensuring there's obviously alignment with the customer that you are going into, but then really going back to the basics around the assortment, price, and packaging, ensuring sort of that value proposition makes sense for that retail customer.
Definitely.
And in terms of, I guess, the doors that you're across now, you've kind of talked about the majors. You've talked a little bit about internationally. I know you export to, I think it's 70 different countries. How's that kind of evolved in the past couple of years? And, is retail a part of the strategy as you kind of, move further abroad?
Yeah, I mean, our 70 countries sounds a whole lot better than it is. It's obviously D2C. So, I mean, if we could ship food into a whole bunch of countries, we'd probably be at 150 by now, but most of the time, it's customs that become the issue. But there's probably about 10 core countries that we ship any sort of decent volume into through D2C, and then we've got some export partnerships as well that do bigger volumes. So yeah, it's I mean, the ideal is to find someone on some sort of incentive structure that can really take over a region, whether it's a distributor or a sales agent or whatnot, and work closely with retailers when they're based there. If not, the other option, if you've got capital behind you, is to hire someone locally who can look after a country or a region. That's probably the best when you've got it internally, but that's obviously comes with its own costs. So it really just depends on where your company is at, the resources you have available, and also how much of a distraction you want something to be in business. So for me, the quotes I love to try to focus on is like, the biggest enemy of great is good. And so what I mean by that is it's very easy to identify a crappy idea. It's very hard. It's an easy trap to get logged into or put into using up resources on a good idea because you haven't realized that it's not a great idea. And so in business, you can get a lot of opportunities even overseas that you think are great, but if you've never done them before and you don't know what you don't know, then it can be a good idea. And if it goes in the wrong direction because of something that you don't know, it quickly turns into a pretty crappy, horrible idea. So avoiding that and focusing on what is great and what's working well in your business is also a pretty smart idea.
Totally agree with that. I think definitely some key learnings I've had is around sort of focus. And I think it's interesting in the early stages of business, it's doing as many different things as possible to try and light a fire in so many different places to get, sales in and understand product market fit and sort of understand your value within the market. And then it seems when you get to a certain scale, it's actually the opposite. It's actually stripping back the noise and focusing on the key sort of levers that can actually drive growth. So I guess, how do you think about focus within your business now, and how do you assess that when thinking about new products, new markets, new opportunities? Is focus an important part of what you do?
Yeah, I mean, you summed it up perfectly, right? So it's like, what are the key levers in your business that you can get the greatest leverage from? And then doubling down on that, is there still like juice that you can suck out of an area? So for us, e-commerce, it's like, well, what runs e-commerce? Performance marketing. Anyone doing any significant volume in e-commerce is running it through that rather than organic. So needing to, unless you're a massive influencer, and that's a different story. So for us, yeah, it's like, okay, well, that clearly is a lever that I should be getting really, really good at. And is there more juice to suck out of that? Well, even if I'm a company doing $1 billion a year, there's more juice to suck out of that. So it's very easy to understand, okay, well, performance marketing makes a lot of sense in that spot. And then in retail, it's like, well, okay, like, who do I have existing relationships with, who I've had performance with? Okay, can I build on that relationship and, launch more products or have deeper relationships there, because it's an easier thing than necessarily focusing on some retailer in a distant, far away country. And so I think it's a whole lot easier to maintain that focus when you're running off resources that are finite, and which is a natural thing with a cash flow funded business.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the idea of sort of all these opportunities sound great. And then as soon as you realize, even if there is a distributor in place or, some other resource that you're leaning on, it definitely sucks resource out of, your internal team, which then splits their focus and dilutes their impact as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And you mentioned, I guess, aside from kind of performance marketing, influencers as a strategy. I know you were pretty early to influencer marketing, at least in Australia. What was the driver behind that? Was that the constraint on kind of cash flow? And like you said, not necessarily having the money to spend on ads, or kind of how did you arrive at that strategy?
Well, I was broke and I had no idea what I was doing in 2016. And I read an article on this thing where you can send gifts to people and they might post about it. And I was like, well, we can't do anything else, so we might as well send the product to them. And we did, because we cared about our product and it was a great product and it did what it said it would do. We were very fortunate that all these people who were dying to express their values in 2016 around health and wellness were like, well, I'm going to do that and express that value through showing the product through social media. So back then you could, again, it was very different times. You could tag your favorite nightclub. You could tag your favorite alcoholic beverage. You could tag your favorite junk food. But no one felt that there was a place to take a photo and tag their favorite supplement company, at least in Australia. And I didn't see it really overseas in early 2016 either. And we were just very fortunate that we were able to capitalize on that back then. Doesn't work anything like that these days. That's long gone, except for some rare cases. But yeah, influencer marketing was very important to us in the early days. So was pre-iOS 14 advertising, where every e-commerce company would just follow you around the web, thanks to Mark Zuckerberg stalking you and putting a pixel on your computer and on your smartphone, and then you'd put an ad up on Meta or Facebook back then, and Mr. Zuckerberg and his friends would put an ad in front of you if you went to your website. And so I suppose they still do that to some degree, but it was a whole lot more advantageous probably back then, especially when the cost of advertising was so much less than what it is today.
100%. I feel like there's different periods where different activities are undervalued. And I think looking back, you look at that sort of 2014 to 2018, 2019, whenever that was, with sort of influencer marketing, it was definitely, a quote unquote undervalued activity that saw huge upside with, minimal investment and really had just a completely different impact to what it does today. And I guess that's where you adapt and evolve and use that strategy slightly differently now in terms of, how it forms part of your overall marketing strategy. But I guess it's something interesting to discuss is, what do you see as sort of undervalued now within marketing? What are some activities that you're sort of all in on that you think are, pushing your business forward?
The funny thing, about 10 seconds before you asked that question, I was like, I bet he's going to ask that question. What would I answer? And the first thing that came to my mind was there isn't anything. And then the second thing that came to my mind was there's email marketing and SMS. The third thing that comes to my mind is the fact that it doesn't come easy to build a database through email and SMS. So it's harder in that respect, but your email and your SMS will be your most profitable areas in the business these days for e-com. They won't bring the greatest scale. That'll still be performance marketing, but building out a very strong email database and an SMS database will certainly give you an advantage over your competitors, and we have that, which is nice.
Makes sense, right? Because I guess you're not at the mercy of the algorithms on kind of the email and SMS. You can really curate your message, and you don't have to necessarily pander to what you think is going to get the most likes or the most engagement, so that it gets pumped out to more people. So no, I think that's that's a good idea. I know you've, recently or not so recently, had a big partnership with Sofa Dofa come out. I mean, how did that come to be, and how did the collaboration kind of feel aligned from a brand perspective for you?
Yeah, look, we've been working with Soph for the last few years. Just it initially started with trying our products and loving them. And when you're friends with, like, I'm friends with Soph, I love her. Her mum's amazing as well. She helps run Soph's business alongside Soph, all for Mimi. Her manager's an amazing guy. So we're friends with them, right? And so a lot of people and a lot of companies just treat influencers as their cash cow, and influencers get bombarded by companies all day, every day. Like, why should they care about anyone who is just approaching them from a commercial perspective? So things take time to build up trust, and Soph's loved our products for a long time, and she loves matcha as well. So we were able to bring out a matcha powder and canned matcha drink, and it's just a natural. We've done other products like a blender with her and protein plus collagen. So it's just been something that has authentically grown over the years, and yeah, it's been great. But there's no magic formula. It's not like, hey, I can tell you how to go and set up a partnership with a major influencer. It's like, if you're already looking at it from that lens, then you're doing it wrong.
Sounds like, that's a key area of misunderstanding, I guess, kind of trying to manufacture magic. And when it's organic in a way that they kind of support your products, already like your brand, and then you start to build these personal relationships, it's always going to feel like a natural next step and probably have a higher impact when it comes to, them promoting the product to their audience.
Yeah, definitely.
Caleb, what in terms of, I guess, the brand you've built today, it feels like communities are really, I guess, important part. And I know you've so aligned with, say, Soph and her community, but even just community more generally. And we touched on sort of email marketing before being, retention and a way you can actually really build, I guess, trust with that community. How important is community to Tropeaka now?
Yeah, it's really important, but we're nowhere near as good as what I'd like us to be in terms of building out community. We've had to have other focuses. But you look at some of the best brands in the space, in any space really, and they're really good at building community. It's something that we're actively trying to do more and more. We're not the experts at it, but it's really important. We have a loyalty program that naturally helps build an element of community, but it's something on my radar for 2026 to build out more and more.
Yeah, I think it definitely feels aligned with what you've built, and definitely makes sense that you've got a pretty good foundation. But it's awesome. I think, can definitely see the entrepreneurial spirit coming through, and I guess the sort of reviewing and saying we're not where we should be, and going in the right direction, which is really, really cool. I've got an interesting question in terms of competitors. Who do you look to as sort of major competitors, and then more interestingly, who do you look to for inspiration? And that can be brands or people, or who do you draw inspiration from?
Yeah, I've got an answer that surprises most people. I don't see people inside my industry as competitors, except for a caveat, and I'll get to it, or caveat, I think that's the word. Can't even remember. But the ones I see as competitors are the junk food industry, like the Coca-Colas of the world, Cadbury Dairy Milks, all of that. If our mission is to positively impact millions of people in their health, my real goal is to make sure that I get people from that industry using our products, or even more so, our products, having a great experience with our products. And then you never get someone who's healthy and you open the cupboard and it's just going to be completely Tropeaka. It's going to be this supplement brand, this health food brand, this health food brand, this other supplement brand. And so the goal for us as an industry is actually to make sure that we're delivering high quality products that justify, which are always more expensive than going and buying a Coca-Cola or a Red Bull or whatever it might be, and saying, hey, you're going to actually feel the difference, have a better quality life because you've spent extra money trying our products, no matter who the company is in the industry. And so I like companies that come into our industry that produce great quality products, especially if they're like unique and they're not just like another Tropeaka ripoff that I've seen like 48 times, in the last 3 years. So it's actually a really positive thing. One, like they say, a rising tide lifts all boats, and it makes us all in the industry try a lot harder and improve. And I've definitely improved a lot off the back of seeing other competitors do some really great stuff, or typical competitors that people would say are my competitors. But it's really the unhealthy products out there that we're trying to take market share off. The competitors that I do see as competitors, and there are a bunch of them within the industry, are those that bring out shitty quality products. And the reason is because, one, through their marketing, they convince the everyday consumer to go and try their product. And then they have a poor first experience with a product within our industry that doesn't do what it says it's going to do. And so they think, oh, here we go again, another bullshit supplement company or a health food company that just sold me a magic pill that does nothing, right? And so where are they going to go in their next shop? They're not going to go to a Tropeaka. They're going to go back to the cheap junk food industry or cheap CPG kind of product that's like industrially processed and sold by a giant conglomerate that has a whole bunch of crap in it. And so those are the products and competitors that piss me off. There's a bunch of them, but there's plenty of businesses that I love in our industry that sell the exact same products as me, that are doing a great job, that actually genuinely want to make a difference. It's important to make money. You need to make money. You need to be profitable in order to impact more people. And that's great. But just as importantly is actually make a product that's making a genuine difference in people's lives.
I think that's a really quite unique answer, actually, in terms of, I guess it relates back to your mission in terms of if you're really trying to impact this many people from a health perspective, then the more people that are trying to do that are only helping your mission to a certain degree, which is quite an interesting way to look at it. And I think you touched on one key thing, which is I've definitely learned over time, which is, and you mentioned at the start as well, there's a lot of products, particularly in this wellness space, that are just pretty packaging that are marketed very well, and particularly in the CPG space, in retailers. And I guess when you're going into retail, going back to, retail being an important part of your strategy, and these brands, that have been around for a long, long time, that have built reputation, but really don't have, very, very, sound products and can get a very low price because of that. How do you compete against those when price is such an important sort of lever within retail? How do you compete against these mass supplement companies that sell products at a really low cost? I
don't constantly get my ass kicked by them. But what do, right? Like, it's my goal to build $100 million a year company off the back of bullshit? No. Like, I work my ass off, not because I need more money. I work my ass off because I've got something where, my kids can be proud of me. I can actually look someone in the eyes and say, yeah, I did the best, and we brought out the best product possible under the pricing that we needed to do. So, yes, we've got products in mass retail that are, let's just say $25, $27. Could I make a better quality product that was going to charge the consumer $40? Yes, absolutely. You can always create a better quality product. But I'm also competing at that $25 price point with companies selling at $15 and $17. And so the trick in retail, if you genuinely want to make a great quality product, is like, how can I make this as good as possible? Yes, I'm going to have, at least in my case, a premium price on things. I'm going to just have to deal with that and figure out, like, okay, can I, through continual differentiation, help the consumer realize that this product is better? That's what I try to do. Like, case in point of greens powder, right? It's easy. It's so easy to create a shitty greens powder. Like, I literally go down the retail space and there's a brand and the first ingredient in it is pea protein. You kidding me? You're buying a greens powder, not a pea protein. The second ingredient is flavors, right? And then there's other brands and they sell a greens powder and half of it's fruit powder. It's like, no, you're telling your consumer you're selling a greens powder. Like, don't with them and tell them you're selling, like, at least tell them you're selling a fruit powder, right? And so it's this kind of level of bullshit that happens in our industry to cut costs. And they put cheap, nasty flavors in them that are artificial, artificial flavors always taste better than natural flavors. And you put sucralose in it and wow, you've created a product. Like, like, you've got to have some sort of values and standards. And so I choose not to. You go look at my Superfood Greens Plus D, it's full of greens, right? And it's natural flavors and sweetened with stevia. It costs a crap load and it's organic. 90, I want to say 91% of the product's organic, certified organic, right? Somewhere around there. That costs a crap load. And so, like, it sells for, I think, in retail for like $27, $28, or maybe $29. I can't even remember. How do I compete with the greens powder down the supplement line, like down that same aisle in diet and sport? I don't, right? And I know how to fix it. I know how to create a shitty product to compete with them. Sometimes you just got to take a bit of an L if you genuinely want to produce a product that makes a difference. But that's not good business advice. So I don't really have the answer for you.
No, I think you touched on some pretty important points. And I think if you have that mission clear, which it seems is very clear for you, then things will work out in the right direction. Whether that's actually within retail or online, you sort of mold your strategy around that, which I think's the part of being adapting. As a business grows. So that makes a lot of sense.
And I just add to that as well. Like, you also need to understand the channels. So maybe a greens powder isn't the right place. A high quality greens powder isn't the right place in mass retail in Australia, right? But where it is a great place? Well, it's a great place in independents because people go there and spend more money in independents, and they're a more educated consumer. And it's also a great place in, say, a Whole Foods or a Sprouts in the US, where you've got a market size which is 10 times more. And so you've got a whole lot more people that are willing to spend money on a premium quality product when they can literally walk 8 meters down the aisle and get a product that is 30%, 40% less. So, it's not a time for me. Like, I don't want people shedding tears over my plights of selling a greens powder. I just want to know, I just want to make it, I suppose, obvious that sometimes you just can't achieve the business outcomes at the same time, and you've got to be able to adapt and move to different channels that might be more accommodating to the type of product that you want to sell.
Definitely. No, it makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned a couple of my favorite retailers being Whole Foods and Sprouts. I think, very much probably like yourself, enjoy exploring sort of the wellness products those retailers have to offer. Are you, working with those retailers? Is the US one of your larger markets? Is that a focus for Tropeaka?
Yeah, it's something we'll move towards, but we're only doing e-commerce there predominantly at the moment. Off to exhibit at Expo West in about 2 weeks' time, which will be good.
Nice.
And so we'll explore if retail in the US is something that we want to kind of push for the next 12 months, or if it's something that's still going to be 24 months away. And that just comes down to, again, what I said earlier, which is pushing into retail in the US with our resources a good idea at the moment or a great idea. And so time will tell.
It will always be a good idea, I think, but like you said, it's when does it turn to a great idea? But I mean, Expo West would be awesome. I mean, I actually haven't been, and Connor can share potentially some of his thoughts on it. I know Con was there maybe 2 years ago now, but the scale of that expo is unbelievable. I think it's over 100,000 attendees. Over 3 days. It's a real festival. It takes over that region.
It's definitely the place that you want to be if you are looking to catch the eye of a Sprouts or a Whole Foods or even a Walmart or a Target. Kind of, it's definitely, everyone is there, everyone's in town, so it's you'll be in the right place, and there'll be a lot of good connections to be had as well, because there's lots of people within the industry who I'm sure you know already, but there's lots of kind of dinners, drinks, different bowling and workout sessions, whatever you can think of. It's there just due to how many people are in town for the event.
Yeah, I was there 2 years ago as well,
nice.
As someone roaming. But this year, we'll be exhibiting, which will be fun. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's great.
Yes, no, it's definitely worthwhile kind of getting out those ways. I know we've kind of talked a lot about, I guess, what the future holds and kind of how you're approaching growth moving forward. I'd love to hear about kind of the early days of Tropeaka and kind of some of the biggest struggles and kind of, I guess, walls that you had to push through. Were there any kind of roadblocks? And I guess a lot of succeeding is ignoring the noise. And kind of, what did that look like for you?
Well, in terms of like roadblocks that we had?
Yeah, absolutely. Just any of the big, when you think about the problems that you were facing, kind of call it 2014, 2016, 2018, what did those look like? And kind of, any key learnings you can share about pushing past them?
Well, I feel like a great characteristic of an entrepreneur is forgetting past traumas. You're going through obstacles every single day. So it's like, I don't even remember the obstacles from a week ago. There's like some sort of thing in my brain that I just have to dismiss. But, like the obvious thinking back then was Cashflow, starting with no money and using all of the money that you had to buy just inventory. So we had to figure out how to actually grow the business. And we started with handing out flyers in Bondi, which I actually didn't even remember, funnily enough, until I saw a friend for the first time in many years. I saw her 2 weeks ago, last week. And she was like, "Do you remember when I handed out flyers for Tropeaka when we started?" I'm like, "Oh my, yes, that's right." So handing out flyers in Bondi doesn't work, at least didn't back in 2016. And who would have thought? And so, yeah, we were like, okay, well, what else can we do? And we started looking at like ways that companies were building through online marketing. And Gymshark was a typical example. They built off the back of a lot of like influencer marketing and seeding before that terminology even existed. And so, yeah, I just stumbled across it one day and sent our products to a bunch of influencers, but they were just creators and actually genuinely cared about their content, built friendships with them, and we were able to have some great friendships with a number of influencers, and they knew the credibility of why we were doing what we were doing, and they were very happy to kind of support the brand because we were producing a great quality product that had a reason behind why we were doing it.
And back then, when you started in 2014, if I've got this right, you got a co-founder. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we Blake and I started the idea in 2014, and then we launched in February 2016. So it's literally 10 years this month. And Blake and I were housemates. So it was, it's been a fun journey.
That's awesome. 10 years in any business is a huge feat. So first of all, congratulations on that. And I guess, how has it been growing a business with someone else as well? And I know it's actually, I think there's positive statistics around having a co-founder. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, obviously, having a co-founder and how you two work together. You know, where do you tend to, spend your time in terms of your strong suit, and how is that complementary, or is it, sort of similar? What does that look like with your co-founder?
Yeah, so Blake is the polar opposite of me, which is, I think, a really good place to be. And he looks after the brand pretty much. So everything that looks great inside Tropeaka is because of Blake as brand and creative. He's a little less involved potentially these days than what he was in the past, but his focus is predominantly that, and mine's the CEO. I do the other stuff, all the other fun stuff.
Yeah, of course. There's a lot that forms part of that, definitely. Is there? I'd be interested. You've started obviously with being a tennis coach prior, so coming into sort of every facet of the business was probably plenty of learning curves, and that probably caused a lot of the challenges you were talking about before, which is completely normal during that growth phase. What were some of the harder or I guess more challenging areas of the business that took to take a little bit longer to learn? Like, for instance, did you lean more into operations with more of a commercial mindset, or was marketing more challenging to take on later? What did you sort of lean to early and then feel as you have to sort of fill the gaps or upskill on as you grew?
Well, one interesting thing was I was heavily involved. Well, I wouldn't say heavily involved, but I was very much involved in internet marketing before I started Tropeaka. And the way, and you're probably thinking, how is a tennis coach? So when I went out of school, I tried, I heard of a thing called affiliate marketing. And so I tried that, and I was horribly unsuccessful. And I tried, I did some search engine Google ads and stuff for some friends' businesses. And so I had a business doing SEM, and I understood SEO, and I understood a range of pockets of internet marketing. And then in 2013, I started a company called, it was around tennis drills. And I actually filmed 200 tennis drills for other coaches and learned how to build a membership site and sold memberships to tennis coaches around the world. And that was a huge process for me, learning all of that. And then I learned email marketing off it, and back in the MailChimp days, and I was able to send emails out and flow emails out to get people into the pipeline and buy the membership course. And I ended up selling, I think, over 100 memberships, which was amazing. It was so good. It was bugger all money, but it was, I just felt very accomplished. If you added in all of the hours of learning divided by how much I made, I was probably on $3 an hour. I learned all of these kind of really important skills. So when I launched Tropeaka, I understood email marketing. I understood search engine like Google ads. I then had to go learn Facebook ads. I had to learn influencer marketing, obviously, as well. But I suppose to then steer that around to the original question, which was what are some of the things that took longer for me to learn? Finances is a big one. And that was also us as a victim of our own success, which was I knew our P&L, and I knew that we're profitable and doing very well. But because we were so successful, we grew from $0 to doing over $10 million in 3 years online, just insane growth. And no one knew, in retail world, no one knew who we were. It was amazing. We would when I say we dominated online, we dominated online in the health food space. And because we dominated so much, I didn't really need to be learning the ins and outs of finance. And it wasn't until competition came in and you had to get really serious about obviously we knew our gross margin and things like that, but our contribution margin and specifically, our OPEX and how that affects the businesses and the different levers you can pull within your business around finances. That took a while. So challenging times are very good. It just causes you to really level up in business and understand your blind spots. And I've had some very good mentors and just people that I've sought out. I've always focused on seeking out people far smarter than myself in areas to learn off, which has been pretty easy because I've always come from a position of not knowing shit and ignorance, and that makes knowing where you are and where you need to go probably a lot easier.
Well, you need a bit of that delusional optimism, right, when you're starting any business, because I think in many cases, if you kind of knew the road ahead, you probably wouldn't embark on the same journey. So I think it's always important to kind of find mentors and people who give you advice, who have kind of been and kind of gone where you want to go, and leverage that as much as possible to kind of support you on that journey.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Luke, any other burning questions?
I do actually have a burning question, one that's probably more selfish from my half. I know you've talked about sort of the foundation of health, and this isn't necessarily a business question, sort of being those 5 elements, which I think you touched on at the start. And I think one of them, which you mentioned either here or before, was stress management, and actually managing stress ongoing and how important that is. And I think I laugh to myself because I know that's an important thing. But when you're running businesses, being a part of high growth businesses, to do that can be very challenging at times with, the amount of challenges that are thrown in your face, on every minute, not even on a daily basis. I'd be curious to see, how do you, I guess, manage stress on an ongoing basis? How do you tick off those 5 foundations of health, while you are scaling, a fast growing business?
Yeah, I love this question. I probably like these questions more than business questions. I can talk all day on them. But it's something that I've definitely needed to get really good at. You feel like you're doing 12 rounds in a ring every single day as an entrepreneur. And so for stress management, one of the things I told you I did just before this, I went on a walk on the beach with my family just near our house. Before that, I love getting out in the sunshine and exercising, spending time in nature, being in the present moment, thinking about the present. I'm very big on positive self-talk, and I do a lot of that every single day. I put myself under stressful situations that oftentimes acutely rather than chronically more stressful than the stressful events that we have at Tropeaka. So case in point, my downtime, my fiance thinks I'm a nutcase, and rightly so. My downtime is going and just exercising at a very, very high intensity and running sand hills and doing that. I'm going to go do that later today after this call. So putting myself, and when I talk acutely, that means a short period, right? Short periods of stress is very good for building stamina in withholding stress. The issue is chronic stress and not being able to deal with that chronic stress on an ongoing basis, which is what us as entrepreneurs face regularly. So if I can go put myself under an acute level of short-term stress through exercise, one, it's doing my body great. It's also building repetition and resilience, and it's also allowing me to overcome something. And oftentimes I'll be listening to positive self-talk or talking to myself at the same time, or envisaging, is that the word? Positive things as well, so that allows me to get into the mindset of being able to overcome things. And the other thing that I do is I live a very deliberate life. I don't live in Sydney. We moved out of Sydney. We're possibly leaving money on the table by not being in our facility every day as a team. But for me, my health matters more. And I know that I can live a more relaxed life I live a few hours out of Sydney in a very relaxed coastal town that allows me to live a life where I'm not dealing with even other micro areas of stress, like sitting in traffic for 40 minutes or 45 minutes. I think there's a study out there that I heard that your happiness is directly correlated to how long you are living in traffic each day, or being stuck in traffic.
I believe it,
and
to be honest.
I truly believe that. Yeah. So I'm very deliberate about how I structure my life around living. Okay, I'm going to be under some, and I use the word weight. I don't use the word stress. So I'm going to say, like, I'm underweight each day at Tropeaka, but I've got avenues to get out of that weight and then go and exercise or enjoy time with my family or whatever, be on the beach in the sun. And then we also have a very clean, healthy house. Like, you'd be surprised how much of people's personal care products that are hormone disrupting chemicals screw over their ability. Like, it makes them more stressful. Their hormones are out of whack. I know if I put the wrong personal care products on myself, my anxiety increases. So now I am more sensitive than a regular person because of the health issues I went through. But yeah, a lot of people don't realize how much of those kind of hormone disrupting chemicals, whether it's your cleaning products, if you're a female, makeup, things along those lines, personal care products actually disrupt your hormones and create additional anxiety and stress for no reason.
Yeah, I think that and I'm learning more and more about this, but we're surrounded by them, aren't we, in terms of they're everywhere. So it's the more you sort of dig down this rabbit hole, you realize how, your whole environment is really dictating, how you're feeling and how you're showing up every day. It's interesting. You used a couple of things I wanted to draw off here, but weight as a label for stress. I found that really interesting. Do you mind speaking through, why you do that and what that sort of allows from maybe a mental point of view?
Yeah, people create narratives around different words all the time. And so there's a narrative that you think about in your head when you talk about stress. But when you talk about weight and you reframe them, like someone that's made a huge impact on my life is Tony Robbins. He talks a lot about like reframing situations. So when I was at my sickest, I read Unlimited Power by him. And it really changed, and a whole bunch of other self-development books. I was too sick, so all I could do was ride my crappy old push bike down to the river, and I'd just spend the day reading these personal development books. And reframing has helped me a lot over the years in terms of the different ways that I actually look at things. And I also almost have like a little bit of a visceral kind of experience when like I hear certain words that, I just don't want aligning with my life. And I've taught my team to try and use the word, like, instead of there's an issue, like there's a challenge. So like, what's the challenge that we're facing rather than the issue? And weight is another one for stress. And there's probably others. I can't think of them all.
Yeah, no, I love the idea of reframing, and even just little feelings you get from weight versus stress. Like, you can feel that when you say it, and I think you can carry weight so you can become stronger. You can overcome a challenge, versus an issue is something that maybe sort of hangs around for a lot longer. So those small reframings that seem sort of insignificant can be quite powerful. And it definitely seems you live a very, I guess, intentional life, which I find quite interesting. And you have a clear mission that's very obviously ingrained and tied to Tropeaka. You could say a why. You've moved, location. You do certain things, whether it's stress or whether it's positive affirmation or this self-development. Was that always part of what you did? Was it very much a catalyst of the health challenges that you did have? Where did that sort of initiate from?
Well, I lost everything when I got really sick. I was flat broke, living out of home, and chronically sick. And so it's always been easy for me to, like, people are also like, how did you start a business? It's like, well, no, everything else sucked, so why wouldn't I? There was only one way to go. And so that was important. My spiritual life is important as well. So that's been important. And my faith in God. I feel like my life is very much moving in a direction that has that influence. And then also like Tony Robbins and those kind of books. I've read so many self-development books over the years, and there's some common themes. And if you read enough of like kind of these people, it becomes very apparent very quickly that the world is doing things, and we get trapped in a way of this is how we're meant to do things. Whereas like these these things are all just constructs of like our culture, the environment that we've grown up in, our current environment, and the way that we perceive the world, and we also allow others to perceive ourselves. And so if you kind of sit down or you go for a walk with that kind of framing and you start to think about where your life is and the external influences that are having on your life and whether or not they are doing you benefit, and also combine that with what your motives are, right? Like a lot of people are just like absolutely obsessed with making money, that their motive is that. And it's important to have that motive, right? There's nothing wrong with making a lot of money. But like when your motive is like, hey, I want to bless a whole lot of people, like you're going to make a lot of money off the back of that if you know your finances. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So for me, like, yeah, I'm very intentional about how I think about how I approach things. And I can thank that a lot on the self-development books that have kind of reframed how we should, or I should be thinking about life and how I approach it.
Incredible. You mentioned, I guess the role that these kind of self-development books have played, and you've kind of named a couple, but if there's anyone out there that's kind of in a similar position that you were, or they are kind of looking to kind of change their lives and reframe how they approach different challenges, is there anything or any one book, 2, 3 that you'd recommend that they kind of pick up first and foremost? There's a lot of noise out there at the moment.
Yeah, one that so anything Tony Robbins is amazing. Probably my favorite book of all time, that Tim Ferriss actually recommends as well. I think it might be him who I got this off, is Awareness by Anthony D. Mello, or Mello, Mello. The audiobook's really good by him as well. And it is literally what I just said over the last 5 minutes, but done a whole lot better than I could ever express. It's just, he's like he comes from it. I can't remember what Christian kind of sect he is, if sect is the right word. He's a Jesuit actually. So he's lived a life as a Jesuit priest, but he talks to everyone, whether or not you're a Christian or not.
Yeah, the Tony Robbins stuff, there's so much around that reframing, hey? And I think, is it Tony Robbins that was, it's not happening to me, it's happening for me?
Yeah.
In terms of that reframing? I remember learning that maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago. And I remember thinking, wow, like just that slight subtle change in how you attack problems and issues and challenges in this instance was definitely, definitely very helpful, which is really cool. But I mean, we are getting to about an hour and 5, so I don't know if we want to wrap it up. Con, do you have anything else that you want to chat through?
No, nothing explicit, but I actually really enjoyed that segment at the end there, Caleb, and kind of everything that you spoke through about stress management and kind of holistic health, and then also kind of framing. I think there's a lot of value in that, and there's more noise than ever out there. So much bullshit on social media and so many people with impure intentions. So it's been really kind of refreshing to chat to you about your journey, both professionally but also personally. So I just really, really appreciate your time. And yeah, thank you for having a chat with us.
No, yeah, thank you. It's been enjoyable. I really appreciate you guys having me on, and I know this is one of your first episodes, so I wish you guys a lot of success with the ongoing podcasts and the episodes that you have. And I probably didn't talk as much as we probably wanted to on CPG, but it was definitely just as rewarding and fulfilling. So thanks, guys.
Thanks, Caleb. That's a wrap.